Hey, what's up guys? It's Apollo Uchiha here back with the new series. Yeah, I know the name of the series What if Naruto was struck by lightning? And if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And yeah guys, I have already uploaded the next part of What if Naruto a Mother's Love. If you haven't checked that out, please check that out as well. And without further ado, let's begin our story. Luck was a very foreign concept to Naruto. It was just something that rarely happened to him, but when it did, so happened to stumble onto the boy. It was not a very nice visit. Naruto Uzumaki was not a very lucky person. Well, most people wouldn't call orphans lucky, but Naruto took his lack of love to an extreme level. The day he was born, he had been hated by society. The villagers of Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves, seemed to outright hate the boy. The son's unfair treatment, lack of attention, and the rare beatings were all thrown at Naruto. The villagers held nothing back from him. Today was just another chapter in Naruto's life. Well, Naruto's shitty and unlucky life. An hour ago, he was locked in his room in the orphanage. He was listening to the sounds of the rain hitting the roof. Suddenly, two men and his caretaker walked into his room. Naruto immediately noticed that the two men were carrying weapons. The caretaker turned to the two men and smiled. She then walked out of the door, locking it in the process. "Oh man, I'm going to enjoy this," one of the men said. Naruto started to slowly crawl back as the men started to walk towards him. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt his back impacted against the wall. He looked up and saw the two men staring at him with a predatory look in their eyes. Tears started to pool in Naruto's as he tried to stop the unavoidable. "Please stop. Don't hurt me." Naruto whimpered pathetically. One of the men sneered and came across Naruto's face with his club. Naruto slammed into the wall roughly and slid to the ground with a groan. Naruto could tell that the man had broken his jaw, gave him a black eye, and he could feel the massive amount of blood pooling into his mouth. That did not work Naruto as he felt the usual rushing of chakra go to his cheek and immediately felt his wound started to heal. Naruto looked in fear as the two men descended on him. They proceeded to beat him violently. At one point, the caretaker came to check on the two men. The other orphans quietly followed her, wondering why she was up so late at night. They watched in fascination as the adults continued to beat Naruto. Naruto managed to lock eyes with each of the orphans. He began to plead and beg them for their help, but none of the orphans attempted to help him. After about half an hour, the adults stopped beating on Naruto. Then they roughly grabbed him and threw him into the streets. And even worse for Naruto, it was stormy night. Naruto got up. Also, the door slammed behind him loudly. He hissed in pain and started to limp off to the streets. The storm had managed to shut down as all the Konoha. No shops or stands were open. Naruto was left deserted in the streets. After several minutes of painful walking, Naruto managed to walk into the village center. To his left was the Hokage Tower. There worked the Hokage, the strongest ninja in the village. Hiruzen Sarutobi. The Hokage was probably the one of only in the village that showed even an inkling of love towards Naruto. The Hokage tried his best to support Naruto while trying not to look biased towards him. Unfortunately, he was not able to do much. It only got Naruto a couple trips to the ramen stand, but that was not enough to compensate for the treatment of the villagers. All around him stood the shops and stands of the people who hated him, the ones that tortured and abused him. They all surrounded him. Naruto was not a very lucky person indeed. Now, statistically, the chances of ever getting struck by lightning in anybody's life is 1 in 50,000. The chance of getting struck by lightning in a year is 1 in 700,000. Now, the chances of ever getting struck in any living moment is 1 in 8987,657. Now, it would take a very unlucky person to get struck by lightning ever. Unfortunately for lightning and unfortunately for Naruto, he was a very unlucky person. Naruto felt the lightning before he heard the thunder. He felt the air around him electrify. When he woke up, he saw a white streak that was coming straight towards him. Before Naruto could even move, the lightning hit him head first. Naruto felt a searing hot pain streaming through his body. His muscles screamed in pain as the tight amount of electricity energy tore through him. He fell to the ground in a sizzling and spasming pile of flesh. Naruto lay unconscious in the middle of the village. The rain pelted against his body. The ground beneath him was burnt black. It was a bad day for Naruto indeed. Early next morning, Hiruzen Sarutobi led a very exciting life. He had met and personally befriended the first, second, and fourth Hokages. He had fought through 3 great shinobi wars. He had become Hokage, retired, and then became Hokage again. even though he was a shitty one, in my opinion. Anyways, it was a very exciting and fulfilling life. Yeah, right. But the only thing that always bothered him was a boy named Naruto Uzumaki. Now, Hiruzen was there at the birth of Naruto, but since that day, he knew that he would be a special boy, but as of lately, he had doubted his earlier judgments. Naruto's potential seemed to have been suffered out by the villagers. Hiruzen walked out of this Okage tower, stretching himself out. He had stayed overnight in an attempt to overcome his infinite amount of paperwork. Fortunately, he had lost his battle. Hiruzen began to walk towards the village square, as it was stopped during his usual early morning walks. There was a large crowd gathering in the center of the village. It was weird that his huge amount of people would gather in a corner. Hiruzen made it to the crowd. He started to push their away. When he got in the center, he saw a horrifying sight. Naruto lay in the middle of the village. The earth under him was scorched black. He lay on his back. His body would spasm. It randomly occurred. His hair was standing up at the end. Move, Hiruzen said. The crowd looked back and saw the furious Hokage was standing behind them. They quickly cleared out the way. Hiruzen rushed to the boy and quickly grabbed him up in his arms. He immediately received a very strong electric shock that sent him flying back several feet. He quickly jumped up with a surprising look on his face. Anbu, get me Asuma, Hiruzen said. Two shadows seemed to flicker off into the distance. Hiruzen waited near Naruto for several seconds. He then turned to the villagers very pissed and looked at them angrily. If I would find out that any of you did this to him, I will personally execute you, every single one of your family's members. I will wipe your pathetic existence from this world if you did this, Hiruzen said. The villagers took a step back in fear. They knew that they did to do anything, but the pure anger in Hiruzen's voice made them truly believe that he would take the orders through without hesitation, and maybe a bit of pleasure. Asuma landed in the middle of the crowd. He looked at his father with a confused look on his face. Todoroki pointed at Naruto. Asuma turned and saw the electrical currents coming off of Naruto. He nodded and then started to walk towards Naruto. He kneeled down and held out his arms. A greenish glow started to surround his arms. He then slowly picked Naruto off of the ground. The electricity coming off of Naruto didn't seem to affect Asuma. Asuma made sure Naruto was secure and then jumped off towards the hospital. Once Todoroki was sure Naruto was okay, he turned to the villagers. He had pure anger in his eyes. The villagers took a step back in fear, and when they saw the pure rage that was the third Hokage's eyes, Anbu yelled. A squad of Anbu surrounded the villagers. Take every single one of these civilians to Ibiki and Anko. I don't want any of them released until they are absolutely positive that they did not do any of this, Hiruzen said. The crowd of civilians erupted in uproar of disapproval, but they were quickly silenced with a look of sorrow. The Anbu grabbed two villagers by their shoulders and teleported them to the interrogation center. Hiruzen sighed and then turned to the hospital. He then took off towards it with incredible speed. At the hospital, Hiruzen arrived at the hospital and met an enraging sight. Asuma was still in the waiting room, arguing with the receptionist. It was like the receptionist would not allow Naruto in. Normally, Asuma would just push past her, but with the injury Naruto has acquired on his arms, he couldn't risk injuring her further. Asuma patience had been extremely tested in the last hour. First, his father calls him during his vacation. He then finds out that Naruto had been extremely injured by an attack by the villagers. Asuma sprinted at full speed towards the hospital, trying to not jolt Naruto. When he arrived, he thought the worst part was over. Unfortunately, he was wrong. The bitch of the receptionist would not allow him in with Naruto. It seemed like the two wouldn't heal the demon in the hospital. So for the next 15 minutes, he had been arguing with her to let Naruto in. He decided he didn't attack to her in fear that he left Naruto unattended. Someone would happen to him. Asuma was continuing to argue with the receptionist. Suddenly, a blur shot past him, and the receptionist suddenly disappeared. Asuma looked towards the direction that the blur shot to. He was surprised to see that his father was actually that unknown blur. Hiruzen had to pin the receptionist to the wall. His hands were enclosed around her throat. He turned back to Asuma. Go on, take him to the operating room 9. I will send my personal doctor to deal with him. For now on, I will deal with this woman, Hiruzen said. Asuma nodded and then shot down the hallway. Hiruzen turned back to the receptionist. Her hands were scratching at his hands. You dare to refuse a treatment to civilian? This comes under treason. For that you must be executed, Hiruzen said. His grip started to increase, and the receptionist's face started to change color. His own grip still increased, and the receptionist's resistance slowly became weaker. Suddenly, a crack was heard in the waiting area. The receptionist fell to the ground. with her head leaning at an awkward angle. Hiruzen stood above her with a furious look. He then turned and walked into the hospital hallway, leaving a waiting room full of terrified people. Outside of the operation room 9, Hiruzen outside of the room stood with Asuma by his side. Asuma had dropped him in the room and Hiruzen doctor had immediately appeared behind him. He had kicked Asuma out of the room and started to operate on Naruto. That had been 2 hours ago. Now Asuma and Hiruzen were waiting for the results. Hiruzen's doctor came out of the room. He saw sweat coming out of his forehead. He looked tired and worried. He looked towards Hiruzen with a sad look on his eyes. "Well, Hijumi, what's wrong with him?" Hiruzen asked. Hijumi led him into the room. They saw that Naruto was currently laid in a hospital bed. Sparks were flying off of his skin. "Well, I can safely tell you that nobody in this world did this to him," Hijumi said. Hiruzen looked in confusion. Hijumi started to explain. "You see, Naruto's body seems to overflow with electricity energy, so much that it is actually producing sparks and giving them off. His body has literally been electrified. If I had to guess, he was probably struck by lightning," Hijumi said. Hiruzen became even more shocked. "He was struck by lightning? What did this do to his body? Is he going to be okay?" Hiruzen asked. Hijumi turned to Naruto. "Normally when a person gets struck by lightning heads on, they would normally die instantly. Now if you were close to a lightning strike, the excused electricity that the lightning created would enter your system and kill you. And this happens if you are not directly hit. Naruto was hit head on. They should have killed him instantly, but due to his occupant, he managed to survive. The lightning entered his body and seemed to bound to his body. The best example for him now is that living lightning bolt. Each one of his cells is electrically charged. His body and blood flows has sped up, and his nervous system, due to being receiving information via electrical charges, is now enhanced. The strangest part is that his chakra, though, the lightning seemed to have bounded with his chakra. He will most likely have a lightning nature. His chakra flow is extremely fast at this point," Hijumi said. Hiruzen seemed too surprised at the news. So far, nothing seemed to be worrying with Naruto except for the physical damages. Also, something strange has happened, Hijumi said. Hijumi reached for a scalpel and held it near Naruto. The scalpel seemed to shake and move towards Naruto. Hijumi caught it before it could reach him. It seems like the excess lightning chakra has created a magnetic field around the boy's body that attracts metal towards him, Hijumi said. Hiruzen looked confused. To him, all of this sounded like good news except for the magnetic field. So as Hijumi was sad, unfortunately, the lightning also had some effect on his brain. The brain was overcharged with electrical energy, so it basically just stopped working. "He's in a coma," Hijumi said. Hiruzen looked in fear when he heard his news. His successor's son was not possibly brain dead. "Is there anything we can do?" Hiruzen asked. "Normally we only try to shock his brain back into working, but due to the excessive chakra just lying in there, we are not sure if it will overcharge it, and he will die, or it will even can cause some other effects. So we can do nothing for now," Hijumi said. Hiruzen buried his face into his hands. Sobs escaped through his tough fake. Asuma rubbed Hiruzen's back. "I'm sorry, Hiruzen, but there's nothing we can do. All we can do is wait and hope for the betterment in the future," Hijumi said. Hiruzen collected himself and stood up. "Keep him attached to life support. I want daily updates on the condition. I will be in my office," Hiruzen said as left off. Hiruzen turned to Asuma then. While both father and son were walking out of hospital, leaving Naruto in Hijumi's care. "Asuma, you can go home if you would like," Hiruzen said. Asuma shook his head no. "No, I think I will stay for a little," Asuma said. Hiruzen nodded and then disappeared in sunshine. Asuma walked into the room that contained Naruto. He slowly walked over to his bed, looked down on him with a worried look on his face. "Oh, Naruto, I hope you are okay," Asuma said. What Asuma didn't know was that Naruto was currently going through a very weird situation. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto lied face down in a shallow pool of water. He suddenly shot up with a confused look on his face. He looked around to see where he was. His surroundings looked similar to a sewer. Pipes ran through it. The only thing that was weird about it was that electricity seemed to be running and going through the pipes. Naruto also noticed that the water he was standing in had a electric current. "Where the heck am I?" Naruto thought. Naruto shrugged and started to walk forward. His words still remained relatively same. The only thing that changed was the shape of the pipes. After what seemed like hours of walking, Naruto came upon a dead end. This and had giant metal gates. The gates seemed to be held together by a piece of paper, but strange design on it. Naruto walked up to the cage with a confused look on his face. He squinted his eyes in an attempt to see further in it. Unfortunately, he could see anything. Suddenly, Naruto saw movement in the very back of the cage. A shadow seemed to be moving closer and closer towards the bars. Naruto slowly took a back step. Suddenly, a gigantic fur-covered hand shot out towards Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes in fear and anticipation, but instead of pain, Naruto heard a sizzling noise. He also heard a yelp of pain. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see what happened. The giant fur-covered claw was now revealed to be connected to a giant fox. The fox had red fur and had 9 tails flowing hypnotically behind it. Naruto stared in shock and awe at the gigantic creature. "What do you want, boy?" the fox said with anger. Naruto just stared in shock. After several seconds of silence, the fox seemed to be getting agitated. It suddenly let out a loud roar to imitate shocked Naruto out of his frozen state. "What was that for?" Naruto asked. "I asked you a question. I expected to be an answer." Intelligently, not with a dumbed stare, the fox said. Naruto hopped in anger at the light insult. He then looked up at the fox with amazement in his eyes. "Who are you?" Naruto asked. The fox seemed to contemplate whether or not it should answer. In the end, it decided to. "I am the almighty Kyuubi, leader and most powerful of the tail beast," Kyuubi said. Naruto looked at Kyuubi with confusion still making on his face. "What are the tail beasts?" Naruto asked. "The tail beasts are beasts made completely of chakra. We terrorize and destroy this world. We are feared by everyone," Kyuubi said. Naruto nodded in his head in understatement. He then started to look around the sphere. "Where are we, and why didn't you attack me?" Naruto asked. Kyuubi sighed in frustration. It really didn't help answering all the questions, but it decided to humor the boy. "This is your Mindscape, boy. It is a representation of your sanity and your happy place. Unfortunately, it is not very happy, as you can see, and the reason I cannot attack you is that infuriating lightning strike," Kyuubi said. Naruto understood everything up till the lightning strike. "What lightning strike are you talking about?" Naruto asked. "You remember that bright light you saw before you fainted?" Kurama said. Naruto nodded. "Well, that was lightning. Due to my chakra running through you, you managed to survive that lightning strike, but the lightning had seemed to affect your body in some sort of way. That is why the water is electrified. Your body has electricity running all through it," Kyuubi said. Naruto looked in amazement at the new news. "Unfortunately, you are in a coma right now, so it really doesn't matter what powers you have been gained of it," Kyuubi said. Naruto's face suddenly dropped. He knew what coma is because he had almost been put in during one of his harsher beatings. This was very bad news for him. Naruto then looked up at Kyuubi. "One last question. Why are you here? The history book said that you were killed by the 4th Hokage." Naruto said. The Kyuubi sighed and sat down. The tails were still moving hypnotically behind him. "Your 4th Hokage didn't kill me. Nobody can kill a tail beast. He actually sealed me inside of you. This is why the villagers hate you," Kyuubi answered. Naruto looked in shock at the news. You are the reason why everyone hates me?" Naruto asked. The Kyuubi let out a small laugh. "Yes, I am. And I really don't give a fuck about it. It's not my fault that your stupid Hokage forgot that containers are hated. Don't blame me. Blame your Hokage," Kyuubi said. Naruto still looked in shock in the news. Now he knew why they hated him. Now he knew why they called him a demon. Now he knew why he wasn't loved. It was because of a stupid fox. "Didn't I just tell you that it wasn't my fault?" "Now I know you are really stupid," Kyuubi said. Naruto grew angry at Kyuubi's words. "Well, fuck you. I will never allow you to escape this cage. You overgrown flea bag," Naruto said. Naruto felt a rush of wind blow past him as Kyuubi tried to attack. Once Kyuubi got close, an arc of lightning came from the seal and shocked Kyuubi. He let out a low growl before slinking back to the cage. "One day, boy, I will escape. Mark my words. When that day comes, my claws shall taste the precious blood that remains in your defeated body," Kyuubi said. Naruto stuck his mingled finger out and looked Kyuubi in the eyes. "You will never escape. I'll train and become so powerful that you will never have choice to submit to me," Naruto said. Kyuubi let out a gigantic laugh. "Good luck doing that in a coma, dumbass," Kyuubi said. Naruto's attitude immediately deflated as the fact was once again thrusted into his face. He sat down across from Kyuubi as he realized he could do nothing. All he could do was wait. 2 months later. It has been 2 months since Naruto had been sent into coma. Things had changed extremely for Konoha. Hiruzen would let nobody, except for him, Asuma, Hijome, enter the room. He also made them swore to secrecy the villagers throughout that Naruto was dead and celebrated 2 weeks into Naruto's coma. Hiruzen immediately tried to stop the parties. Unfortunately, he could not breach into other people's houses and stop them from celebrating. The sounds of cheering and celebration haunted Hiruzen for weeks. In the hospital, nothing had really changed. Naruto was hooked up to life support. His room was sealed off, and only Hiruzen and Hijome were allowed in their room. Naruto lay motionless in his hospital bed. Of course, Hiruzen could keep it completely quiet that Naruto was dead. A small leak managed to get out to the public. Normally, most people would be happy if the person they hated were in coma. Unfortunately for Konoha and Naruto, Konoha civilians weren't normal. The villagers gathered together and started to rush towards the hospital. It was a quite dark night in Konoha. The villagers was calm. The lightning were out. The children were sleeping. Everything was fine. Oh, what is this? We find a large group seemingly sneak into the village. If we take a closer look, we see that the most of the group is made out of civilians due to the actual lack of stealth. The civilians slowly stalked their ways towards the hospital. Once they reached it, one of the crowd figures in the stalked forward. It reached inside their pockets and pulled out a key and locked the door of the hospital. No alarms were set off. The crowd slowly filed into the room of the hospital. When the person who had the key made sure that everyone was inside, they locked the room behind them. The person with the key then started to lead them through the winding halls all to the hospital. They stopped in front of the door and the large 9 above the door. Okay, he's in room 9. A figure said in the crowd. The civilians all filled into the room. It was a tight fit, but they managed. They all surrounded Naruto with their mask-shaped weapons. On the count of 3, we end this demon life, the leader of the group said. All the occupants of the room minus Naruto let out a yell of acceptance. 1, 2, inside the cell. For the past 2 months, a lot of things have changed between Naruto and Kyuubi. And by a lot, I mean little. Kyuubi would repeatedly send insults towards Naruto that seemed to get more and more obscene with each one. Naruto would talk back to him and respond with his own. It was a hate-hate relationship. Naruto was currently sitting in an open field with his eyes closed. He had figured out how to change his mindscape in the first month. He had changed it into a forest, reminiscing of the forest of death. But sunlight managed to reach the floor. Unfortunately for Kyuubi, he decided not to let him get too much freedom. Kyuubi was attached to a gigantic tree that was larger than him. He had a very short leash that stopped him from doing anything. Suddenly, Naruto heard Kyuubi let out a low laugh. Naruto looked at him in confusion. Hey, dumbass, some of your oh so precious villagers are here to attack your body. Naruto flinched in fear. What am I going to do? Naruto asked. Kyuubi gave off a loud yawn before stretching lazily. Fuck if I care. Deal with it yourself, Kyuubi said before going further into the cage. Naruto sighed and started to rack his in an attempt to think of a way to escape his coma. Suddenly, a kanji appeared in front of him. After struggling to decipher the kanji due to his lack of education, finally managed to understand it. It was lightning. Naruto, not having any other option, hit the kanji and it disappeared in a spray of electricity. Outside in the real world, 3, the villagers said. All the villagers jumped on Naruto, but suddenly they heard a loud boom that froze them all in their tracks. Only now did they take in account of the spark that was flying off of Naruto. Oh shit, one of the villagers said. They heard a loud rumble as saw a bright flash of light. The last thing they felt was immense pain. The last thing they saw was Naruto getting struck by lightning again. With the Hokage, the past 2 months had been hell for the Hokage. The day after Naruto was struck by lightning, the news that he was in a coma was immediately spread into the village. Of course, the villagers thought he was dead. Celebration was spread throughout the village. Ninja and civilians alike celebrated the death of Naruto Uzumaki. Hiruzen immediately ran into the streets to stop the celebration. The only thing he managed to do was to send the celebrations in the ninja houses. Yes, things had been not good for Hiruzen. Hiruzen was staring out of the window with a broken expression on his face. He had not been able to get much sleep at the last 2 months. He had opted to start out of the window onto the village. He was really staring at the hospital room that contained Naruto. He really wondered when he would come out of coma, even if he were. Hiruzen sounded like weird occurrence started to appear over the hospital. Black clouds started to swirl over the hospital. Hiruzen then heard a loud flash of thunder. He flinched as the thunder almost defeated him. Suddenly he saw red lightning. Bolts came soared out of the clouds. The lightning broke through the roof of the hospital and seemed to reach towards the ground floor. Naruto! Hiruzen whispered before disappearing in a burst of speed. At the hospital, visitors lay dead surrounding Naruto's bed. Naruto groggily rose from his bed. He opened his eyes, and the first sight that greeted him was the dead bodies of some of outspoken haters. Strangely, he didn't feel remorse, he actually felt happiness. Excitement, maybe. Naruto did not understand why he felt happy about seeing these dead people. Hiruzen crashed through the window. He looked around. The room was surprised to see the huge amount of dead civilians. He was also surprised to see that Naruto was actually awoken. Naruto-kun, what happened? Did you see that lightning bolt? Naruto slowly turned around and shook that greeted Hiruzen's eyes with surprise. Naruto once blue eyes were now electrifying yellow. What's wrong with Ji-san? Naruto asked. Nothing, Naruto-kun. Just go back to sleep, Hiruzen said. Just awoken from a coma, Naruto was actually still tired. He was happily agreeing to lay back to sleep. Hiruzen silently signaled his anbus and picked up the dead bodies around Naruto. They noticed that parts of their bodies were melted. They were confused on what killed them, but regardlessly picked them up and took them away. In Naruto's mindscape, Naruto awakened in the mindscape. He saw that Kyuubi was still sitting there patiently waiting for him. Surprised to see that you're not dead, brat? Kyuubi asked. Naruto stuck his tongue out and then stretched. He laid his body against the soft ground and promptly fell asleep. Kyuubi stared at Naruto with malice in her eyes. Your arrogance shall be my freedom, Kyuubi said. Next morning, Naruto woke up. The next morning, his lazy stretched his muscle and jumped out of the bed. He rushed out of the door and immediately slammed into a nurse. The nurse started to apologize, but then she saw whom she was actually apologizing. Hey boy, get back into your room, the nurse said. Naruto stuck out his tongue and spat away. The nurse noticed that Naruto was actually faster than most kids his age. Ninja, or not should be. Naruto spat through the villagers, running in between adults' legs and zigzagging through the crowd. He noticed that he seemed much faster than usual. To the villagers who watched Naruto, they noticed that he was leaving a yellow outline of himself when he ran. After several minutes of running, Naruto arrived at the only restaurant, if it could be called that actually served Naruto. I am a Chan, I'm back, Naruto yelled. A woman stepped out of the back of the restaurant. The woman had long brown hair, brown eyes, and fair skin. She wore a white robe with sleeves flured with a dark blue apron. Naruto-kun, it's so nice to see you. Where were you? How are you? Are you okay? Ayame said as she ran over to Naruto and gave him a hug. I'm okay, Ayame-chan, I was just in a coma. Naruto said cheerfully. Ayame let out a sweat drop at the way Naruto just said that he was in a coma. She decided to drop it and started to take Naruto's order. You should rape her. She has a fine figure, Kyuubi said within Naruto's mind. Naruto looked around in fear at first, thinking that Kyuubi had broken free, but after seeing no trace of gigantic or demonic fox, Naruto figured that Kyuubi was speaking from the seal. Stop talking in my mind, Naruto yelled out loud. Ayame and the rest of the occupants of the stand looked at him in confusion. Once they saw what he spoke, they turned to their meals, ignoring the demon brat. Hiruzen walked into the ramen shop minutes after Naruto started to eat. He sat down in the seat next to him and placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, I know that you were knocked out and kicked out of the village, and I apologize for that, but I found you a new apartment and I have a surprise for you. Naruto stopped eating and slurped the last bit of ramen that was in his mouth. He turned to Hiruzen. What is it, Oji-san? Naruto, how would you like to join the Ninja Academy? Hiruzen said. Of course I want to join, Naruto said, yelling and hugging Hiruzen. Hiruzen chuckled and let Naruto hug him. It was the least he could do for the boy. That is good. Let's get you to your new apartment then, shall we? Hiruzen said. Hiruzen paid for Naruto's meal and walked out of the stand. While Naruto was walking through the streets, he noticed that some of the looks hatred he was carrying from the villages 2 months ago, he would have shielded away from looks, but now for some reason he looked agitated. He was pissed at them. Naruto raised his middle finger and flipped off all of the villagers. The villagers looked in shock as 5-year-olds just flipped them off. Hiruzen saw that Naruto was doing and stopped walking to scold him. Kill them all. Give them a reason to hate you. Make them fear you, Kyuubi said. Naruto shook his head to get Kyuubi's voice out of his head. Naruto-kun, you should not do that to villagers. You should respect them, Hiruzen said. Naruto fiercely turned to Hiruzen. Hiruzen noticed that he had passion burning in his eyes. No, not anymore, Uchiha-san. I am tired of dealing with their bullshit. I am going to lie down. No, I'm not going to lie down and take it anymore. If they want to give me those dirty looks, I feel free to do the same, Naruto said. Hiruzen looked in shock at Naruto's declaration. I'm tired of it, Uchiha-san. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not Uzumaki, damn it. And I'm not going to be taking any more of their shit from now on, Naruto said. Naruto and Hiruzen didn't know, but that proclamation started to ripple throughout the ninja world. The proclamation had sent the ninja world. The boy struck by lightning was about to be introduced onto a ninja world soon. As this is where I'm going to be leaving off this part. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please comment down below and leave some kind remarks regarding it. And yeah, guys, this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.